Thank you, everyone. I guess good morning. Sorry, I'll have to keep orienting myself to that because I've already done so many things this morning. But it's really great to be here and talk with you. As Shelley said, I'm Associate Design Director with Smart Design. And most people know Smart Design for what we did quite a long time ago and kind of what our legacy is and what our founding is. So over 30 years ago, we pioneered the field of universal design. But when we kind of launched the OXO brand and OXO Good Grips. Today, that's really kind of morphed into a multidisciplinary design consultancy where we do physical products, digital products, services, and ecosystems. And I'm kind of here today to kind of, I think, talk through the process of, or the evolution of being a designer that I think is trained as an industrial designer with that kind of classic background, and what it's really like to be in a dynamic environment with many different talented people with a lot of different skills, and to really kind of hone your voice and your way of talking with other people as you kind of move through the design world and kind of move into service design and ecosystem design. Because I think the skill set and how you have to express yourself and how you have to talk through things and what you learn along that way really gets a lot more challenging and a lot more complicated when you move into kind of more advanced design problems that we kind of use. Smart Design is, at the end of the day, a strategic design firm. So everything that we do as a company is really kind of grounded in insights, grounded in really understanding our audience and our users, and making sure that we keep them the center of the mind as we're designing and as we're creating solutions. And I use the word solutions intentionally because it's not always designs. It could be an entirely new experience. It could be something up in the upper left corner is the recent work that we did for Gantry, which is very classic industrial design, working with engineering, building our designs, building our story and getting it made. Down to the bottom, which is our advanced technology team. So we have a team of computer scientists and computer coders that actually help us kind of do advanced design solutions that really kind of bridge digital to physical design. And as a designer by background and lots of fine arts training, I just think whatever they do is magic. And I love what it is that they bring to the table. All the way to more some of the products on the right-hand side, which are really more about services and experiences. We've redesigned birth control to be the process of accessing and getting birth control to be non-judgmental and open to all different experiences. We've even revolutionized, I think, Gatorade and how they're perceived as an innovative company. And what I want to talk to you about today is, I think, as you move into service design, as you move into these kind of advanced processes, I think the people that you interact with on a daily basis and the way that you have to talk to these people, I think that threshold and that bar gets higher and higher and higher. And as a designer, I think that was a real skill that I had to learn to be able to kind of have those conversations with brand managers, with doctors, with CEOs, with just so much of a variety of people, with policymakers. You have to talk to so many different people as part of kind of, I think, the classic design thinking process. And you do have to connect with them in the right way if you really kind of hope to get your design ideas into the world. So as I just said, this is going to be definitely spoken from the perspective of someone who works in the consulting field, which is where I work. And so I kind of think very much in terms of clients, but I think the skill set is universal and it applies to, if you're wanting to go be an in-house designer and you have to just work with managers or product leaders within a corporation, or even if you want to go the startup route, right off the bat, right out of college, you still have to convince other people to believe in your ideas. So the example I'm going to show you is actually a rather non-traditional design product, at least for me. And this was when I was, or my firm, I should say, was hired to do the design language for Woodford Reserve. And I think at first blush, this is a very kind of simple project. All we had to do at the end of the day was make a bottle, most likely out of glass, that could hold liquid. And I think what I learned through working on this project was it was actually much more challenging than I anticipated, because as a classically trained industrial designer, and kind of why I gravitated towards design is that design has technical limitations. It has usability. It has a lot of other things that you're thinking about during the design process that actually kind of provide guardrails during the creative process. You have to work within certain constraints. And my constraints for Woodford Reserve are really only that it contained liquid. That was my technical constraint. And it really kind of opened the field of this could be anything. It made me be much more of an artist than I had really been in a long time. And I'd kind of lost those guardrails and that safety net. As I started to work on the project, though, I realized that that was a deceptive simplicity, because what we were actually looking at was a bottle that was nearly identical to 1,000 other bottles that are clear, that hold brown liquid, and are on a store shelf. So how was it that we were going to work with Woodford Reserve to make their product as distinct as they wanted it to be? And I think that was a real kind of creative challenge that kind of really forced me to tap really deep into how I connected with a brand team for a client, as well as how I really connected emotionally with a consumer, and what it is that makes something appealing, what it is that makes something stand out on a shelf to them. And it was actually a much more artistic a process than I had really done in a long time. This process started a little bit non-traditionally for a consulting project, but it was really a trust building exercise. So this client team actually came to us after several years of actually trying to engage in this project and do this. And they had actually really struggled because they had not been able to find in all of their kind of traditional partner relationships somebody that really connected with their brand and that they really actually trusted to design their brand. And so this started with this open-ended trust exercise. And that sounds silly to call it that, but that's like in retrospect, that's really what this was. There was not really a hard deliverable that we need to actually design this product or like a set number of SKUs or anything like that. It was, here is X amount of money. We want you to show us what we can do with our brand. So it was very, very open-ended, and it was lots of hypotheses, lots of prompts, and lots of ideas. So there's two reasons that I included this photo in here. The first is because of the amount of ideas that were on the table. And this is another thing that I think a lot of students can kind of misunderstand around the design process, and they get too wedded to a single idea too soon. Sometimes it is about multitude of ideas, and you actually have to come up with not just one good idea for the client. You need to come up with 5 good ideas for the client. You need to come up with options and have backup ideas. And it's really a process. So this is really only a representation of about like half of the sketches that were in the room. And there's a whole other wall, whole other side that was there. And so that's one reason I chose this photo. The second reason I chose this photo is because of the moment in time that it was. For whatever reason, this meeting started at 7 a.m. And this was the first time I had met this client team in person. So this is kind of the brand team for Woodford Reserve. And they showed up at our offices at 7 a.m. or like 5 minutes before. And they were already deep in passionate debate and conversation about their brand, about Woodford Reserve, about what it is they could be doing. And it was a real moment for me to realize that I needed to match their enthusiasm. I had to connect with them in a way that rivaled the passion that they had for their brand. So as we went on through the process, it was really, as I said, about building trust and showing them what we could do with the brand, but also showing them how much we respected the brand and we respected the foundation of what it is that they had already created. And that we were going to respect and honor that foundation, but push them into new territory and new designs. And then through that, after that process, then we had kind of a little bit more of your classic design development process with sketches and mood boards and storytelling, where we were really kind of working down to individual concepts that we were sharing with them. But I wanted to include this in here as well, because I think as much as I'm talking about the importance of words and telling the story and connecting with your clients, I don't want people as designers to forget that at the end of the day, oftentimes our superpower in any situation is our ability to visualize words. To visualize what it is that people are saying. So when the client team comes to me and says this is about being creative and scientific, I can take those ideas and I can turn them into a visual. And I can be like, oh, when you say this, do you mean this? And I can throw down a sketch, and it may be an ugly sketch. Or it may be a cool sketch, whatever it is. I can pull a mood board, I can pull another picture. So I can actually use that kind of robust toolkit that we as designers have to really kind of further kind of build that relationship and connect with the client as we work to understand what it is that we want to do together. So ultimately the process became a little bit more refined. And I think for me, the real moment where when I had that like final and concept phase and we're presenting concepts to the client team and being able to stand in front of these people that were so passionate in their brand and what they were doing, and kind of confidently present back these design solutions as expressions of what it was they're trying to achieve, was actually like, I still just remember that feeling of kind of finishing that presentation and feeling so good about how well that we had really kind of translate what they did. And the moment that I knew that it worked was actually not after that meeting. It was this client's funny. They're in Louisville, Kentucky, where most bourbon comes from, and they're very Southern proper. So they would actually have us leave the room while they talked about the work that we did, which does not usually happen in the world. So it was very awkward. So we would just like literally be like in a green room, like in a holding room while they were talking about us. And they picked, we were working on like 5 different bottles, and they picked a design. And, you know, we've just had a really great conversation. We kind of wrapped up the meeting and then we left. I called the client the next day and I told them that one of the bottles that they picked was the wrong one. and we should do this other one instead. And that was actually the bottle on the right, which is the double oaked. And this was a brand new bottle for them, and they were trying to copy a competitor, with the one that they had picked. I think as a designer, I think you always want the client to trust you and respect your opinion when you make a recommendation to them, and it usually never works. Full disclosure, when you come into a recommendation with a client, a lot of times that does not work. This was the first time that I was able to have those honest conversations with a client and tell them why I felt that the design that they had picked was not the right one and why they should go with this one instead. And this was the first time that I had actually succeeded in that conversation with the client. And that's how I know that they really trusted me and I really connected with them as a client. So, with that, I just have kind of a few tips and pointers and thoughts. I do not pretend to be an expert in the world of communication, but I've learned that, the design challenge is usually not your only challenge in the design world. And the challenge is actually getting your ideas made and getting other people to believe. And this is what I've kind of found works the best. So number one is to speak with enthusiasm and confidence. Even if you don't feel it, the client really, really wants to know that you are as enthusiastic and as engaged in their challenge and in their brand as they are. If you don't convey that to them, they're not really going to trust or believe anything that you're saying, even if what you're saying is right. And this is something that I actually have to coach my designers on all the time when setting them up to talk to clients. The second is really a kind of a basic principle that if you do research or look at all into emotional intelligence of what it takes to kind of connect with people, is to ask a lot of questions. This actually works phenomenally in the interview process too. It's a way if you're uncomfortable being around people or uncomfortable talking to people, it's a great way of like taking the focus off you. But what it actually says to the client is that you care about what it is that they're thinking about and what their priorities are. And what you do when you're doing this is you're actually learning all about that client. You're learning what they prioritize and what they think about. And what that gives you is the ability to come back to them and speak to them in a language that they understand, that is meaningful to them. So it's not just to present your design ideas the way that you would present them, or the way that connects most with what you think is important. But it connects your ideas to what they think is important. And so in this case, that could actually be relying on statistics and numbers, because some clients and some teams just are more rooted or grounded in numbers and data and facts, and they need that confidence. In the example of Woodford, as I was giving, it's the ability to talk to the brand, to show them that I understood the heritage of the brand. I had to use their own words, the way they talk to the brand, and I had to use that back to them. And then the final bit, and it's not meant to scare you, but you don't really have a long time through this process. So you have about 0.05 seconds is the time that people will spend actually forming an opinion about a design. And I think that sounds really harsh for the design world. But if you look about in the other sense, people actually will judge other people in 0.1 seconds. And this actually applies both to clients as well as it applies to how much time consumers actually spend thinking about our ideas and solutions when they're in the market. So I think to me that just really resonated. It was really meaningful to me about kind of the importance of just kind of keeping it simple and keeping it on point. Sometimes it's better to say less and only say what is that is needed to be said, because clients will get bored very, very quickly, and they may not care about some of the details and some of the things that you care about quite as much as you do. So it's remember to kind of keep it to the point, and really say what kind of needs to be said. So that's what I put together for you today. I will add, and I forgot to say this at the start, one of the other reasons that I wanted to talk about this today is because when we're hiring designers, we actually, there's a system that we have and we get scorecards for everybody that we interview. The second thing that is on that scorecard is what are their storytelling skills? How did they talk to their work? How did they present their work to us? And so it's like, I think it's not necessarily a spoken about value at Smart Design, but it really is kind of core to actually how we look and evaluate designers to consider to bring them on the team, because it is so important that we can connect with clients and connect with users and really kind of get the ideas that we want to get made.
My name is Avery. I'm actually a recent graduate from the BA design program. I graduated in 2016. And for the past like 5+ years, I've been working as a professional project designer in the industry. And I truly believe that design is one of the best majors, because as designers, we have this ability to create our own path in what we want to do and our own process and our own style. And there's virtually no limit to these ideas that we can develop. And creative work can be really intense, but it can also be really, really fun. And I don't think I realized this. I didn't realize design was what I wanted to do for a living until about my 2nd or 3rd semester in this program. I never had that aha moment like, oh, I know exactly what I want to do and I'm going to work towards it. In fact, I attended the completely wrong orientation my first day on campus because I had completely forgotten what discipline and what major I had signed up for. And that was embarrassing, but you know, that's how lost I was at the time. I knew I wanted to do something creative and in the arts, but I was pretty lost and unfamiliar with the whole realm of design. So I don't want to like TED talk you guys and like the rules of design, or, you know, come at you like some design professional who has it all figured out. I just want to share my experience as someone who went from, you know, a student who didn't even know what her major was to someone who's happy and making a living as a designer currently. So the first thing I want to start out by saying is that this design program at CSULB really helped me figure out not only my design path, but what I wanted to do. And in this program, I never felt railroaded into a single specialized discipline. Like I never got into the program and thought, okay, I only have to focus on industrial design. I was able to explore different avenues of design. I was able to tailor these projects and classes to things and topics and brands that I was interested in, which really sparked not only my creativity, but my interest in different fields of design. Because I knew I liked design, but I wasn't sure, like, am I an industrial designer? Am I cut out to be an architect or an architectural designer? Like, do I want to commit to that 4-year program? If I'm an interior designer, does that mean that I'm, you know, railed into doing kitchen remodels for a living? Like I had no idea coming into this, and I wasn't married to anything. And I was just thinking like, how do I manifest my career and polish my skills if I don't even know what I want to do? But this program really helped me explore and establish what I like to call like a really strong baseline in the arts and in design to really figure that out. And I'll start off by saying that I've been into a lot of design programs and working in the professional field and seeing my extremely talented coworkers. They come from these schools with these insanely high pedigrees, these design schools like Art Center and RISD and Otis and, Stanford even. And it's intimidating seeing these people come in from, all these crazy schools, but we look at everybody's portfolio coming in and how they, talk about their work and everything. And what I've noticed that these people from these really specialized design schools come in and they know about like one or two things and they do those two things exceptionally well. But overall, they're lacking a variety in this industry, variety is really important. Being good at one or two things is great and amazing, but showing experimentation and familiarity with other forms of art, it really translates in your work across your whole career. So, my boss once told me that being a designer is kind of like being a chef. You can make like a killer steak, but without good sides, it's not going to be the best meal you've ever made. So I like to think of that as design as well. Like you can be really, really good at a couple things, but you need to have your side game there too. So you'd be really surprised how often these things come full circle, art history, fundamentals in furniture design principles, storytelling, like all these little things build up and create like a really strong foundation for you. So again, a big thank you to this program for giving me that solid foundation as a designer. And I will say that it made me not as intimidated working with architects, working with engineers, working with theater set designers, because I already had been at school. Like I got paired up with an architectural major on one of my first semesters, and it just made me get their discipline a little more and let me really kind of tap into exploring these different avenues of design. And it's nice to know that, all these other designers, like all these other industrial designers or product designers or landscape designers, we all have the same fundamental classes. So it's really nice to see and connect with people that we've all come from the same place. And that journey through school was probably the largest step for me in figuring out my career, because not only did I realize that I wanted to be a design major, but I also figured out that I wanted to be an environmental designer. And from there, it helped me like get a job designing spaces and experiences within a niche industry. So I want to move on and like kind of share with you guys like what I do, because I know it's a little complicated. All these titles like mean different things, and until you see someone's work, you don't really understand. So right now I'll talk about working at WET, where I am currently. I am a lead project designer and field art director, and WET is located in Burbank. We're a very fun niche design firm. And on my day-to-day, I design themed spaces, very heavy into landscape architecture, but the projects here are so crazy and so fun. They range from like designing a temporary set for Comic-Con, like a hotel lobby feature or a feature in a casino. We've done theme park rides, theme park attractions. We develop and design like board games sometimes, and I'm currently illustrating like a stylized map. So all in all, like I'm getting paid to doodle today. So everything is so different, and that's what makes design, I think, so fun, because you always get to try new things in certain industries. So it always keeps me on my toes. And I want to share my screen now and kind of show you what my journey at this company has been like. So let me see. Do we have advanced portion of screen? Bear with me here. Okay. Can I get a thumbs up from someone that they can see my screen? Great, thanks. Okay, so I wanted to just give you guys a little visual a couple examples of some features and give you an idea of how we articulate our work and express ourselves here at WET as designers. Just a little background, WET is this company that was started by ex-Disney Imagineers. So you'll see that a lot of our work is not only like sophisticated and innovative, but not letting go of that like playfulness and emotional aspect and experimentation you often see in the themed entertainment industry. So here at WET, we've taken the most basic and familiar elements and we've reimagined them to create moments, experiences, and memories for people. We define destinations through the mediums of water, fire, ice, fog, and even light. So this is our specialized palette. An artist may paint with paint, but we paint with fire. That's our medium. In order to create these moments for people, designers, architects, and engineers work together to create custom features for clients. And everything we do here at WET starts and ends with context. So as designers, we often ask ourselves, what can we do for this space? How can we make this special? Like, what's the story here? And clients want you to tell their story. Like Julianna said, clients want that emotional attachment to a design. Like they want you to hear them out and get, fall in love with this design and their story and their space. So due to the variety of clients and location and context, we've gotten this opportunity to create features that are not only large and musical, but we have kinetic features that are very sculptural. We have civic projects that really focus on community and public enjoyment. And we even have like iconic and celebratory features like this one, which is the 2002 Salt Lake City Winter Olympic Cauldron. So I wanted to share this first feature as part of my journey as a designer, since it is one that inspired me long before I joined this company. And upon learning more about it and the process, I really fell in love with this art form. This feature is called Glacia. It's one of 5 installations at the Crystal Mall in Las Vegas. And it's perhaps one of my favorites because of its extremely powerful sensorial presence. And this, as an art piece, was one that really lit a fire under my butt to be innovative. And this installation made me realize that fine art could present itself as a water feature in a mall and still be extremely impactful. So if you don't already know what you're looking at or haven't quite figured it out yet, these are monolithic ice columns. And what they do is that they rise and recede back down from the water's surface. So there's a huge room down there underneath these columns that's equally as deep as these columns are high. And as they rise from underground, the ice is carved and etched with water to make these organic patterns and shapes in these, monolithic ice forms. So the really cool thing about this is that you'll never see the same feature twice. This feature is ever changing, and I think that is so insanely cool as an art form. These ice columns are frozen on purpose with different transparencies that range from like frosty white to crystal clear. So even the transparency of the ice is designed. And in developing this feature, designers knew they had to invite people to come up and touch the sculpture and feel that this was actually carved ice and not just some foam sculpture. So they added a small pillar close to the edge of the basin, which is specifically meant for just that, to let people come up and touch it, to invite people to come up and touch it, to touch the art. And that's one thing I really value about this company is that real elements are our backbone. We don't rely on gags or projection or smoke and mirrors like a lot of theme parks do. All of the technology is developed in-house and it goes through this intense mock-up testing here on our campus. And so designers play a significant role in elevating this from a doodle to something that can be, engineered and tested. So I wanted to just include this because this was something that really inspired me starting out at this company as a designer. It opened my eyes to new avenues of how to be expressive in more of like a fine art sense. This is Jewel at Changi Airport. And this was one of my very first projects I got to be a part of coming in as a junior designer. It was intimidating for me starting out right out of school because not only was it architecturally complicated, but had this strong visual language to adhere to. So I'm not gonna lie, I was terrified when I first saw this project on the board. It was a fast moving project and it had a lot of big firms working on it. So, I mean, I can even say that this is a milestone in terms of design spaces. And it has since changed the way we think of airports altogether. Uh, so it's called Jewel, and this is a rain waterfall that punctuates the heart of this incredibly lush atrium space, and it defines a literal airport as a notable destination. And one of the things that this project really inspired me, starting as a designer, was the trust I saw between these truly talented and capable professionals. They gave us this space to do our thing while they did theirs, and having everything come together in such a beautiful way was really remarkable. So the initial fear quickly turned to excitement because I was working with these great mentors, and their creativity and attention to detail was extremely contagious. Everything about this development was hugely based on collaboration. So everything we did affected everybody else's work. The landscape designers, the architects, even the guys installing like the HVAC system, and vice versa. So every detail we imposed had some effect on like the larger picture. So for example, the geometry of the building was precisely designed to harvest rainwater and accommodate this beautiful double-tiered waterfall. So if we had inherently changed the amount of water that was falling, that would change the climate in this atrium. And the climate would change the landscaping. So everything changed. So it was just a huge team effort, you know, to have the architecture inform our feature, and our feature to inform the climate, and the climate to inform the landscaping, and the landscaping to inform the experience. So when everything comes together like that, you know you're working with teams that are really good at what they do and very invested in the final product. This project also opened up my horizons to designing multimedia shows. I came into this job thinking I was going to be designing like small mall fountains, and I learned pretty quickly that there are countless opportunities to expand into new artistic roles that use environmental or interior design or even fine art as a foundation. I mean, I can even tell you the guy who programmed this fountain started here as a video editor, and one of our current media designers only ever studied fine art. So I can promise you that designers in this industry never have one single job. They never end up doing what they just studied. It's not like one refined thing. You can melt into any role you want to. And then my final project I wanted to share with you guys is my most recent project. And it's an event happening right now, something that if you want to fly all the way to Dubai, you could actually visit. It's open till March. I also wanted to articulate how good it feels to see people enjoying your work and seeing a project open successfully as a designer. So I was a lead designer and field art director for this installation. And I spent the last 2 seasons living in Dubai, getting this thing open. So this is surreal. It's an iconic water feature created for His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, kind of a mouthful, as a permanent installation at Dubai's 2020 World Expo. And within this circular plaza, visitors are surrounded by the sights, the sounds of a 300-meter long, 15-meter high wall over which these frothy waves of water come tumbling over. And at night, this feature changes into something completely new. It gets ignited with these melting colors and abstract media in real time. So this isn't just us projecting on water. This is real-time reactive colors, reactive projection. This is a smart program. And at the center rise these 6 sculptural spires that in the evening hours erupt with colored flames, hydrogen flames, and they highlight this musical projection show around them. And I included these spires because I wanted to share with you guys that I actually went back to the fundamentals I learned in furniture design at Cal State Long Beach to create these successful sculptural elements. You know, I use things like balance and emphasis and proportion and rhythm and unity and all those things we learn in our fundamental classes that at the time they don't seem relevant to what you might want to do, but they are. They're very relevant. And I can tell you that we went through multiple models and multiple studies just to get this right. So the feature went through years of ideations and design changes. We didn't just think of this overnight. I started this project in, I want to say, 2017, 2018, and have shed blood, sweat, and tears for it. Lots of tears, lots of sweat. So many of you can probably relate that having moments of self-doubt, you know, ripping up sketches because they're poorly drawn, having a client not like a concept you're in love with, and, you know, even having a creative like block, it's all part of the process. So we have these models and you can see that it doesn't even look like the final product. This thing, I think, went through probably 50 different design changes over the years, and it gets tough sometimes, but at the end of the day, it led to something really cool that I'm proud to say I had a big part in designing, and it's very rewarding. And this is also a project that where the variety of artistic expression I talked about earlier came into play for me. So for our 3 portals into the feature, I designed and got to art direct these scenic rock walls. And this was really fun addition. This was a really fun addition to the site because these strata walls not only added to the story and narrative that we came up with for our clients, but it kind of softened the seriousness of a feature in Dubai and made it more of a themed experience. So my work actually hired an experienced set painter and scenic artist to come train me to be more hands-on with, you know, scenic painting and do that in-field experience. And that's something I think I'll never forget. And I'm thankful to be a part of this industry for that reason. Lastly, I wanted to share that during this marathon of designing this feature, it went through a total metamorphosis and became this musical show. So what we did was, to make it extra amazing, we approached this renowned composer, Ramin Djawadi, who is an Emmy Award composer for the music of Game of Thrones, Westworld, Iron Man, Pacific Rim. He's composed so many famous scores, and he was nice enough to compose an original score for our feature. So our choreographers and Ramin co-created, married the music and the visual water experience simultaneously in tandem. This was a world first. And these moments are extremely inspiring to me because this industry is one that allows for crazy collaborative opportunities like this. I mean, you're not going to get to collab with the Game of Thrones composer as an insurance broker. So this whole industry is super fun. And when I was asked to share with you guys what really inspires me as a creative, my answer is that, you know, working with these other insanely talented people you end up meeting, working with, struggling with, you know, celebrating the final product with, it's extremely rewarding. And I never feel like I'm on a loop, or I never feel not stimulated by my work. And I think that speaks volumes. And sharing that experience with others is just so rewarding, and it keeps you inspired, you know, to keep going to art galleries and stay in touch with your professors and colleagues and experiment with different mediums. So if you guys have any other questions for me later on, I'd love to answer them. I also have this video of this feature that I think is pretty good at explaining what it is, and I'd love to share it with you. So hope everyone has their sound on so you can hear this. So thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Any questions? Can't wait to answer them later on. Thank you, Deb. Thank you, everybody.
I have no idea how I'm going to follow that. That was insane. Both of you guys are incredible designers, and I'm just honored to be, a part of this discussion today. I come from a very different background, but what's cool is, like Avery, I graduated the general design program. Kind of at its inception. I was one of the first graduating classes of the general design program because it didn't exist yet. And I like to think that I'm part of the reason why it does exist, because I was very frustrated that I didn't fit in the industrial design program or the interior design program. And so I actually petitioned the dean personally and explained that I was hearing all these grievances from all these designers, that they weren't graduating because they weren't accepted into the programs. And then they were left with, 5 years, 6 years of design credits with no graduating degree. And it was really frustrating. And so when I said that to the dean, it was like they didn't even know that that was an issue. And then next thing you know, I'm meeting with the design department's director, and I feel like I'm in trouble. But really, they were like, we're actually creating another department for students just like you. And I was like, what do you mean just like me? Like the students that don't really fit in industrial or interior, or find themselves wanting to explore graphic design or typography and art and sculpture and everything, because that was me. I wanted to be a furniture designer, but I also needed to take interior design classes so that I could learn about space planning and lighting design, because I was already working at a studio called Tango Studio at the time. They're called Studio Other now. And I was designing custom office furniture for these really cool companies. And I already had a job kind of waiting for me. So I didn't want to be in school for 2 more years and apply for a new program. And how I got that internship, you guys, just in case you're wondering, I was a sophomore and I didn't have a portfolio. I just met someone that I was in a band with. They played keyboard, and they also happened to be the CEO or the CFO of an interior design firm. And I was like, oh, I really want to explore office furniture. I think that'd be cool. Like, I don't know if I want to do that. And the summer before, I had done an internship in residential. So I was like, I'll just do an internship. And I walked in, and it was this giant company called Tangram Interiors. And I had no idea they were like a steel case dealership, and they came from Michigan, and they're the #1 dealership, and they're this big deal. I remember I showed up to my interview with like flip-flops on. I was like not prepared at all. But I ended up rescheduling and came back like professional. Like I took a shower and got dressed and wore like a suit or something. And I spent 3 days, I think, making a portfolio. And I remember I'm going to be a storyteller, just so you guys know. I don't just follow with me, okay? It's just going to be a totally different experience. So I went home. I took pictures of my apartment in college as if I was like some interior designer, and I put that on a page. I took pictures of some of my drawings I did for Tubner's class in Rapid Viz and some other classes. I presented what I had done so far in school. And I sent it to mypublisher.com, which I don't know if it's a thing, but it's like Vistaprint, where you can like print a photo book. So I printed a portfolio of all my work that I had collected the last 2 years. And I had enough homework and stuff to pull together. And then I showed up to my interview, and I got the job because she said I sold her on a drawing I did that had a teddy bear. And I don't know if Tubner remembers, but I spent a lot of time making that teddy bear look like a real teddy bear. And I was really intricate with all of my line work. And Tubner sent it back like so many times. It was like, it doesn't look fuzzy, it looks shiny. Teddy bears aren't shiny, don't make it fuzzy. And I was like, okay. And so that teddy bear actually got me a job, because the lamp that was the actual product design was, I did this like tulip lamp or whatever for the assignment. And the light was hitting this teddy bear, and the light had to look like it was hitting something fuzzy, not like it was hitting something shiny. And that was, I don't know why, but I sent, when I showed her that picture and I kind of talked to her about it, I told her, it was really hard to draw this, but I'm so excited I did because I really love this lamp concept. And she's like, that's what sold me. You sold me on your lamp. And so I wanted you to be an intern with us because you made it fun to talk about design again, and we need that. And so I got the internship, and I was stuck in the hardware cage for like 3 weeks, and all I did was sort hardware for all the furniture designers. And I learned all about the bolts, the nuts, all the things, no buts. I learned about all the washers and all of the hardware that they use for every piece of furniture. And I was very familiar with how everything should be organized. So I ordered and I organized that entire cage, we called it, of hardware the first like couple weeks I was there. And then from that, I started working on like actual furniture design. And then from there, I started working on $1 million projects. And then from there, I started to sit in boardrooms at Universal or Fox or that's like Fox Racing. What else? I did DreamWorks offices. I did Pinkberry, Hulu when they first started. And they were just like 4 people sitting in the boardroom trying to figure out how they were going to grow this company. Like we were there at the beginning of their first office, and then they expanded and blew up huge. It's just so cool. I loved my job. I was an industrial designer for 7 years, designing custom office furniture. I got to see my designs come to life, and it was the dream. Like the coolest job ever. You see how Avery lights up and Julianna lights up when we talk about their design. There's nothing like sitting in a room, coming up with a concept, having it shut down, and then coming back like some survivor of like a war with a new design concept and presenting it, and then them being like, that doesn't suck. Okay, we're getting somewhere. And then you do again, and then do it again, and do it again. And then finally, the day comes where it gets sent to production, and you get to see it, you get to sit in it, you get to experience it, you get to hold it. There's nothing that compares to that. It's the coolest thing. But for whatever strange reason, I was at the top of my career. I was 26, 27 years old, and I felt like I was hitting a ceiling. We had just launched our brand new showroom in downtown LA. And I had a corner office. I was on the 12th story of the Pac Mutual building. It was a dream. It was the coolest job. And I was looking out at downtown LA, and I couldn't help but ask myself, like, is this it? Like, I feel like I've designed a lot of furniture, and this is really cool, but something in me is still hungry to do more. And that's kind of the way you'll always feel as a designer, and that's a good thing, and it can be a discouraging thing. But I'm here today because I'm coming from the perspective of, what if we did more than just product design, furniture design, designing homes? What if instead of just designing homes, we had an opportunity to end homelessness as well? Like, what if we could do both? So I don't expect all of you guys to quit your job as a designer one day and start a nonprofit. Frankly, it's the hardest thing. Don't do it. You'll make no money. But I did it because I wanted to give all my friends, all my design friends, and all of you the opportunity to do both. So you can make incredible water features that kids get to experience when they go to the Americana, like Avery. Like my kids, we go to the Americana in Glendale and we listen to the music and watch it, you know, this fountain, it's their favorite thing. And I actually had that apple peeler that Julianna posted like on the screen. Like I had that in college. I remember the way it felt. And I remember being like throwing the metal one away because this plastic grip and this rubber grip is way more comfortable. I interacted with these products and these experiences, and I'm so excited that both of them spoke and shared, because their experiences and their contributions to the world we experience is unmatched. Like that's so cool. And I remember that feeling, and I miss it. I really do. But what I created was a nonprofit, because I looked around and there were nonprofits doing what I was doing, but they weren't having professional designers do the work. They were having, you know, church volunteers or, you know, youth kids get together and solve these needs in the community. But that was frustrating to me because, I mean, I grew up in the church. We did projects all the time, and sometimes they turned out terrible because we weren't professional painters, like we weren't professional builders. And that was not okay for me as a designer. I wanted to give people in need the best. So what I created with Pen and Napkin was a community of professionals that are the best at what they do so that they can give back to the community. So you can carve out, you know, a moment of your day or a moment of your month, do a project once a year, whatever your capacity is to serve, and ask yourself, like, what responsibility or what need in my community can I take a little bit of responsibility for? And that's what I did when I was sitting in my office in downtown LA. I looked at the people experiencing homelessness and I asked myself, like, what if I took a little responsibility for this? What if instead of handing out money and handing out meals and trying to do things on my way into work and my way out of work, what if I actually approached this as a designer? Like, what would a designer do to solve this problem? And that was a huge question. It took me 2 years to answer that. But the answer I came up with is you need to quit your job and think about this more. I was like, oh, I don't really want to quit my paycheck and my benefits, but I did that because I didn't want you guys to have to do that. My first project happened when I discovered the first need. And all I did was open myself up to looking for needs that I felt like I could personally solve. So if you don't take anything away from my talk today, except for this, I will be happy, because all I want you to do is ask yourself, in my community right now, what's the need that bothers me the most? Like, when I see it, do I think to myself, man, if I was in charge of this city, I would do that differently? Guess what? You're in charge of your city. You should do something about it. And you're very capable of coming up with solutions. You do it all the time. There are problems far more complicated that you solve in your design classes than some of the things that are as simple as this kid doesn't have a bed. Guess what the solution is? Give him a bed. Done. Problem solved, right? So that's how I started to approach this. So I found a need in San Diego when I quit my job, so I had to go back to school in order for my family to be cool with it. And I was like, I'm gonna get my master's. And my family was like, okay, but why'd you have to quit your job? I'm like, I don't know, I can't explain it. So I was in my master's program and I did a community development project. And part of like looking into the community was identifying some sort of charity and what they do and like breaking it down and seeing if it's successful, right? And so I picked a transitional living center. Now, for those of you who don't know, there are shelters that are like emergency housing, and then there's transitional centers where you stay for like long periods of time, you go through programming, rehab, healing, whatever you need to do to start again. I'm a huge advocate for transitional centers. I think emergency shelters have a purpose, but they shouldn't be used as a stepping stone into an apartment like it's being used right now in LA. It's completely a failure because you have rapid rehousing programs that are failing so hard because people are going into a homeless shelter and then they're getting keys to an apartment and then they're winding that back on the street and back through the system because they don't know what to do with an apartment. And it's too overwhelming. And I can get into that, but it's something you should definitely look into. So transitional centers, they help the person heal and prepare for what the responsibility is to have an apartment. And then we come in after they get their apartment and fully furnish it and decorate it. And the difference it makes for a family to transition to a fully decorated home is crazy. And this is the statistics. So 50% of the families that transition into an empty home end up back on the street. It doesn't matter if they've gone through long-term programming or not. And that was crazy to me. I was like, wait, so programming doesn't always work? Like sometimes it fails? Like, how is that possible? Well, I need you to put yourself in the shoes of a single mom really quick. And you've been at the shelter for 6 months, okay? And you've had a place for your kids to sleep. You've had 3 meals a day. You've had everything you need. And you've also been getting healing and you're feeling really confident. You've also been on job interviews and now you have a job. And you also applied for housing and now you have your house. Okay, so now you're taking your 3 kids, you're moving into this apartment, you open the door and what is it? It's empty. It's completely empty. The kids don't understand that. The mom is like, this is a new beginning. We're so excited. We're not at the shelter anymore. But the kids are like, I miss my bed. I miss my friends. This sucks. So now, even though it's supposed to be a step forward, it feels like a step back. The mom is mentally and emotionally prepared to move into this house, but the kids don't get it because they don't have the capacity mentally and emotionally to understand that it actually is a good step. So when we come in and fully furnish and decorate the apartment, they have a 98% success rate. And it's because furniture actually makes a difference in the way we feel and the way we wake up in the morning, the rest that we can get from having a mattress or sleeping on the floor. Psychologically, sleeping on the floor does damage. We know that. So for a kid to not have a desk to do their homework at, they're not going to be as successful in school. That's just the bottom line. They're not going to invite their friends over to do school projects because they don't have a bedroom. They don't have the things that other kids have. So they start to ask themselves, like, why don't I have what you have? And it really does affect the mom eventually. And so a lot of times, 50% of the time, the mom doesn't have the courage to keep going, and she gets discouraged and she wants to go back to the shelter because guess what? Her kids were happier there. And as much as she's healed from her domestic violence circumstance or from her transition out of, prison or whatever it was, she still needs something to wake up in the morning and remind her that, you're worthy, you're strong enough, you can do this. And waking up in a brand new bed, in a room that's fully decorated, customized to her likes and dislikes and everything, and kids running in and saying like, oh, Mom, I had the best night's sleep. I can't believe it. Then my pillow has my name on it. Like, I have my own bed. Like, those things get her up in the morning, get her to work on time, get her to pick them up from school, excited for them to come home and work on their new desk. And that's what makes a family's transition successful. And that's just a little thing that we get to do as designers, as interior designers specifically, and say, hey, like, okay, you design homes for these clients, these lavish clients all day. What if you took one project a year that wasn't for a lavish client, that was for a single mom who is transitioning out of homelessness, or for a shelter house that is housing 15 survivors of human trafficking that are coming out of the sex industry? Like, what if you did that just for a week of your time out of the whole year? You focus a few hours a day on solving a need in your community. What would that look like? What would that do to you? I promise you, it will rejuvenate you as a designer. Because guess what? It's not going to be enough for you to see your job completed in Dubai, although that was probably the best moment ever for Avery. Like, there's going to be moments up into that point where you're like, yeah, I want to do more. Like, I wish that, this water feature also contributed to helping in the water crisis in the world that we live in right now. And there's so much need around us, you guys, and there are so many designers in the world. And we do these projects and we create these things. And all I want to do at Pen and Napkin is be a bridge from the need to the professional that can solve the need. And that's how I approached starting a nonprofit. I asked myself, like, if I can do this, which at one point, I think the last project I did was by myself. I did like 50 homes, I think, in a row. And then I asked myself, wait, if I can do 50 homes, then someone else could do one home. Like, I feel like now I know how to tell someone how to do what I've done. And I designed Pen and Napkin to have very little overhead. I didn't want my nonprofit to have a big warehouse. I didn't want it to have trucks. I didn't want it to function like that because I didn't want us to be stuck in one city, because need exists all around the world. So when I was thinking about expansion, I wasn't thinking about expanding in a city and getting multiple warehouses and being like Goodwill everywhere. Like, I didn't want that. I wanted the designers to pop up around the world and say, hey, like, there's a need in my community. How do I solve it? And I want to be the person to be like, that's a really, really important need. Like, let's think about that. How do we solve that? What do you need? What resources do you need? What kind of budget would you need? These are the same questions I used to ask myself when I designed furniture. Like, what's the budget? Like, what's the problem? What's the function that needs to happen? Like, all those questions are the same questions in solving a need in the community that they were in solving a furniture design challenge. Like, it was the same process. I just was applying it to humanitarian efforts. So for me, the first project I did was for a family of 5. And I remember I had like no money in my account because I had just quit my job and I had spent all my savings on my first like tuition payment or whatever for grad school. And I remember telling the community director, hey, so when you have a family graduate, like your next family that's graduating, I want to fully furnish and decorate their apartment. And I just said it. Like, I didn't have enough money to do that. I had I just got married. My husband and I together, we maybe had like $2,500 in our account. That's not going to fully furnish and decorate an entire apartment for like 5 kids. And of course, that's exactly what happened. Like, within a week, I got a call, and the first family I got was a family with 5 kids. And I was like, oh, fantastic. And it was a 1-bedroom apartment, and it had like a little office space. So we had to put all 5 kids in the master in like a double bunk bed with a trundle. And then mom and dad were in, this office space. But I stepped out in faith in a little bit. And my faith wasn't just my own, but it was in the community that I was serving. I believed that if I told enough people about what I was doing, that they would want to help. And it was true. Every single person I told wanted to do something, whether they wanted to help me finish establishing my bylaws for my nonprofit, because I hadn't done that yet, and I already had this need. I checked to make sure my exemption status was correct, because I had to start a nonprofit. I had to figure all that out on my own. No one taught me how to do that. So I actually used my design skills as a graphic designer and exchanged services to these really incredible lawyers that needed a new logo. And I said, I'll do a new logo if you do my bylaws. And they were like, okay. So totally helpful to just know some other skills and just keep that in your tool belt, because you'll need that if you are trying to, change career paths. So I did. I designed some logo stuff for them, and then they finished my bylaws, and they were like, yeah, you're actually ready to start taking donations. Like your exemption status is cleared, like you're good to go. And that was the same week I got the phone call from the family. So it was perfect timing. So I was like, okay, I need to start collecting money. I need to start telling people about this. And I was working in a design house called Moniker in San Diego. And this warehouse was really cool because it had different creative professionals all in this one space. And so I walked around and just kind of talked to everybody about what I was trying to do, starting this nonprofit. There's this family, they have 5 kids. And I met this guy who was there for another meeting, and he actually happened to be like a big time marketing director. And he was like, well, how are you going to raise the money? What's your strategy? What's your marketing strategy? And I was like, my strategy right now is to tell everybody that I know. And you're one of those people. And he's like, well, what's really funny is I just was at this like meet and greet yesterday, and I got the card for the CEO of Jerome's Furniture. Do you want his card? And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna need that. So thank you. And he's like, and this is his assistant. Yeah, so Jerome's, maybe they could help because they are a huge furniture company. And I just was like, that, of course, like that's amazing. That's a miracle, right? So I emailed them. I said, hey, I have this family. They need 2 bunk beds, 1 with a trundle. And before IKEA came out with that trundle under the bunk bed, they were really one of the only manufacturers doing a triple bunk bed at the time. And they said yes. And they said, do you need anything else? And like the little good designer I was, I had already measured out the entire apartment, and I had a list of all the things I needed. And I went through one by one with this guy who was going to pitch it to the owner of Jerome's. And he pitched it. I got a call within an hour, and they fully furnished and decorated the whole apartment. It was the coolest thing ever. Was it ever that easy again? No. That was just the first one. And it got me hooked, and seeing the kids' faces when they came in, and seeing the mom burst into tears and the dad cry over the dining table and say, like, I've never been able to sit all at one table with my family before. And he got to pray over the meal and pray over the family. And it was one of the coolest moments ever. This ex-gang member with like tattoos all over his face is weeping over the dining table because he's never, ever had the opportunity to sit at his own dining table and say a prayer for his children. And it just reminded me of there's so much that designers can do that is beyond what we create. We really can change lives. And it's not to say that project design doesn't change lives, it does. So keep doing that, absolutely. But ask yourself if there's a need in your community that you can take a little responsibility for, because that's all I did. And now we have over 290 designers across the US and in other countries that are signed up to do projects in their community. And I started to do the numbers last night. Like if they started doing one project for the rest of their life for Pen and Napkin once a year, we would serve over 14,000 families. And that's just with the 290 that are signed up. And more designers signed up every day to do projects in their community, because it's simple. It's a simple concept that I've figured out a way to multiply. And all I did was encourage other designers to ask the same question. Hey, like, please design homes, please do this. But at the same time, could you help me into homelessness? Can you help me in the homeless experience in the life of one family or one veteran or one, individual transitioning out of trafficking? Like, what else can we do? And I imagined Pen and Napkin when I first started dreaming about Pen and Napkin. I wanted it to be this like think tank studio where we sat down and we were given design problems from all over the world, whatever the need, whether it was, the water filtration straw that they use to to clean water and they drink out of it. Or I remember one of the concepts was a wheelchair that was made out of polypropylene wheels, because one of the problems with the wheelchairs that are donated over, around the world, the wheel deflates and it breaks and then they're back on the ground again, which is awful. And I was like, what if we made a wheel out of like polypropylene that was like stronger, that, still was able to grip or still able to roll? And I remember in this dream, I was like sitting down with the best engineers and the best designers from all over the world. And we were solving this problem that another nonprofit tried to solve, but they didn't have professional designers working on it. They just were like, we're going to donate wheelchairs. So we bought a bunch of wheelchairs, we raised a bunch of money, and we sent wheelchairs to Africa. It's like, that's awesome, but the wheelchairs break and they're not that great of a design. I mean, when was the last time you saw a redesign of a wheelchair? You know what I mean? Like, the concept is pretty simple, but could we make a wheel that doesn't deflate? Could we make a chair that doesn't break down after, 600 uses? And so these are some of the questions that I want designers to start asking themselves simultaneously as they're asking themselves about their clients that are paying them. What if you did some pro bono work as well? Because I promise you, if you feed your soul a little bit, it's going to make you just a better designer in general, because you're going to feel like, I don't even know, I can't describe the feeling, but you're going to feel better in the sense that you won't have a client that's tearing down your work or challenging your every thought. You'll have clients that are weeping in your arms because your clients, you just changed their life. And I want to remind you guys that there's both, and you can do both. I feel like I really want to share this video with you that we have on our website, just so you can kind of feel the emotional attachment that I've had with some of these clients. This is an older video from one of the last projects I personally did. Now a lot of my job is training designers and meeting with them. We have a 101 class that introduces you to pen and napkin, and then we have a 201 class that once you've taken your assignment in 101, you then tell us what project you're going to present and what you want to do in your community, and then we come alongside you, create the campaign page, help you fundraise, help you solve that need. And if you need more designers on your team, if you need an engineer on your team, if you need a plumber, whatever you need, we're going to find those professional individuals to help you solve that need at a level of excellence that the family and the community deserves. So I've got my memory always inside of me, but I can't go back to how it was. I believe now I've come too far. No, I can't go back to how it was. Create for a place I never know. This is home. Please, you know, like, I want to see this part of the film. I want to see someone else do what's going on. Okay, that still makes me cry every time I watch it. But guys, it was a simple idea. I honestly can't tell you enough. Like, it was just a simple concept that I asked myself, like, hey, how can I help in homelessness? And then I started to research and I found out that furniture makes a difference. And then I left the furniture industry because I was like, well, if I designed furniture for 7 years, I probably have resources to furnish homes. And I just kind of took one step at a time, and it led to experiences like that where forever I will remember the Brown family. Like, I love them so much, and I love every single family I've had the opportunity to serve, and I don't forget them. I don't forget the kids that jump on their bed and say, Mom, I got my own bed. Like, a kid shouldn't be excited about having a bed, you know, like they should have a bed already. They should be excited about other things. But the reason why we are so fortunate and so lucky is because we've been given a gift as a designer. There's not a lot of people that think the way we do. We think in the sense of we're always trying to strive for better. We're always trying to design something, and it's never going to be satisfied. And that's a good thing, because we should never feel satisfied, because we should just ask ourselves, what else can I solve? What else can I design? What else can I do? It's a constant opportunity to create change. So please be encouraged, be inspired. I'm sorry that I didn't have like some really cool presentation. But honestly, you know, Avery and Julianna did such a great job in showing you the inside and behind the scenes of what it is to be a professional designer. So do that. Go out and be the best designers, and then call me when you're ready to do a community project, and I will find a need in your community and let's solve it.